The neon sign of Tony's Slice House flickered against the damp asphalt, a pinkish hum that pulsed through the misty night air. Liam Morgan wiped his hands on his apron, glancing at the clock that read 11:47 p.m. The shop was nearly silent, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. He was ready to clock out when the phone rang, shrill and unexpected. On the other end, a woman's voice whispered an address he didn't recognize, her tone smooth yet strange, as if each word had to pass through static. One large Hawaiian. Extra pineapple. Then the line went dead. No name. No callback number. Just the address, written shakily on the delivery pad. His boss, Manny, raised an eyebrow but shrugged. Last one, kid. Make it quick and you're done for the night. Liam nodded, tossing the pizza box into the insulated bag. The order smelled sweet, too sweet. The pineapple scent seemed heavier than usual, almost syrupy, as though something else clung to it. The printed ticket had smudges, but he could still read the location, 121 Kailua Drive. It wasn't on any route he'd taken before. He checked his map, the street barely registered, appearing only as a thin gray line near the outskirts of town, close to the old industrial road that led nowhere. As he drove, the night pressed against his windshield like a thick curtain. The wipers smeared drizzle across the glass, and the radio stuttered with static, flipping between half-heard stations. Streetlights became sparse, and then they vanished entirely. The GPS arrow blinked uncertainly, losing signal. He slowed, squinting at street signs that didn't exist. Still, he kept going. Somewhere deep inside, something told him that turning back wasn't an option, not yet. When his headlights finally illuminated a cracked mailbox that read 121, he exhaled, more out of relief than reason. The house stood hunched behind a curtain of overgrown palms. It didn't look abandoned, but it didn't look lived in either. The porch light flickered weakly, and in its intermittent glow, he noticed that every window had its curtains drawn tightly shut. Liam grabbed the pizza bag and climbed the steps, the wood groaning beneath his boots. He knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Still silence, except for the soft rush of wind carrying a faint tune, something like an old island melody. When he turned to leave, the door creaked open an inch, releasing a breath of warm, humid air that smelled faintly of rotting fruit. He swallowed hard and spoke into the gap. A pizza delivery. Hawaiian. A pause. Then, from the dark, a whisper came, not from the other side of the door, but from somewhere deeper inside the house. Leave it on the table. His flashlight beam quivered across the entryway. There was no table in sight, only an empty hallway stretching into blackness. He set the box down on the step instead, muttering to himself, eager to escape. But before he could descend the porch, a thin hand shot out from the darkness and slid the pizza inside. The door slammed shut. Liam stood frozen for a moment, his pulse hammering, unsure if what he saw had been real. Then, from behind the closed door, came the unmistakable sound of chewing. The next morning, Megan convinced herself she'd overreacted. Cruises had security cameras, trained staff, and plenty of people around. Surely she wasn't in any real danger. Still, as she made her way to the breakfast buffet, she couldn't shake the memory of the slow, deliberate knock on her door. The corridor outside her cabin seemed longer than usual, lined with identical doors that gave no hint of the people behind them. 2 uniformed crew members passed her, speaking softly in a language she didn't recognize. As they walked by, she noticed one of them glancing over his shoulder at her. Not just a quick glance, but a long, assessing look, as though measuring her reaction. Breakfast should have been a comfort. Sunlight pouring through panoramic windows, the clatter of plates, the smell of coffee and fresh pastries. But Megan's attention kept snagging on small details. A waiter refilling water glasses seemed to be lingering at her table just a beat too long. A young couple at the next table whispered rapidly to each other and kept glancing toward the entrance. And when she finally stood to leave, she caught sight of the man from the night before, the one in the dark suit, seated alone near the back. His hands were folded neatly on the table, his plate untouched. He didn't blink when their eyes met. This time, Megan didn't wait to see if he would vanish. She turned and left. She decided to spend the afternoon exploring the ship. Deck 7 had several quiet lounges and a library that smelled faintly of old paper despite the ocean air. In the library, she struck up a brief conversation with an older British woman named Helen, who was knitting in the corner. When Megan mentioned seeing a man in a dark suit, Helen's needles paused mid-click. Tall, thin, doesn't eat? Helen asked, her voice low. I've seen him too. 3 years ago, on this very ship. Different cruise. He was watching people then as well. Before Megan could ask more, another passenger entered, and Helen's demeanor instantly brightened, as if she hadn't said anything at all. That evening, Megan noticed a change in the ship's atmosphere. The wind picked up, rattling the glass doors on the outer decks. The hallways seemed dimmer, shadows stretching farther than they should. She passed a security camera mounted above the stairwell and had the sudden, irrational feeling that it wasn't connected to anything at all. Back in her cabin, she locked the door and tried to distract herself with a movie on the tiny wall-mounted TV. Halfway through, the screen flickered, briefly showing what looked like live footage of the ship's exterior decks at night. In the grainy image, a lone figure stood at the railing, unmoving, staring out at the sea. She shut off the TV, her heart pounding. The ship's engines throbbed beneath her feet, steady and relentless. But she couldn't shake the growing sense that the ocean majesty wasn't just carrying her across the Caribbean. It was carrying something else, something that didn't belong among the living. By the third night, Olivia could no longer pretend the noises were harmless. The creaks had grown louder, and the house itself seemed to breathe differently once darkness fell. She sat on the edge of her bed, wrapped in a cardigan, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Daniel had been called away for an overnight work trip, leaving her alone in the house. The upstairs felt impossibly far away, though every sound from the nursery reached her as if carried through a megaphone. Around midnight, the rocking began again, steady, deliberate, and much too loud to ignore. Heart pounding, she climbed the staircase, each step groaning beneath her weight. The hallway was dim except for a faint glow spilling under the nursery door. She hadn't left a light on in there. Her throat tightened. She pushed the door open, and the chair was moving. Not wildly, not even quickly, but undeniably rocking on its own. Her breath hitched. For the briefest moment, she thought she saw a silhouette by the window, a slender figure with graying hair tied in a bun, wearing a long dress that didn't belong to this decade. When she blinked, the chair was still, the figure gone, and only the faint lavender scent remained. Shaken, Olivia retreated downstairs and called Mrs. Whitaker, despite the late hour. The older woman answered groggily, but didn't sound surprised. "You saw her, didn't you?" she said, her voice grave. The Price woman was always watching that street. Even after she passed, people swore they caught glimpses of her in the window. Mrs. Whitaker urged Olivia to leave the nursery door shut until Daniel returned. "She doesn't like to be challenged," she added softly, as if speaking too loudly might summon something. Unable to sleep, Olivia curled up on the couch, trying to convince herself it had been a trick of the light, exhaustion playing cruel games. At some point, she must have dozed off, because she woke abruptly at 3:14 a.m. to the sound of a window sliding upward. She sat up, heart racing. The house was silent again, except for the faintest creak of the stairs, like weightless footsteps descending. She held her breath, every muscle tense, until the sound stopped. The smell of lavender drifted faintly through the living room, though the windows were still locked tight. When morning came, Olivia ventured back upstairs, sunlight doing little to soften the nursery's unease. The chair was now pressed right up against the window, its back legs slightly lifted as if caught mid-rock. On the sill rested something that hadn't been there before, an old-fashioned brass hairpin, tarnished but delicate, catching the light like a small warning. Olivia didn't touch it. Instead, she backed away, her hands trembling, and closed the door firmly. As she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror, and for a split second, another face seemed to hover over her shoulder, watching with an unreadable expression. Liam couldn't remember how he got home. He only remembered the smell, that cloying sweetness lodged deep in his nose, coating his throat. He sat on the edge of his bed, clothes still damp from the drizzle. His phone buzzed with a new voicemail. No number, just silence at first, then the faint sound of chewing, followed by a low, melodic hum, the same Hawaiian tune from before. He deleted it, but it reappeared seconds later. That night, the melody followed him into sleep, weaving through his dreams like a living thread. When he woke, he could still hear it faintly in the hum of his fridge, in the rhythm of his heartbeat. The tea work. Manny avoided his eyes. "You okay, kid?" he asked, but his voice sounded distant. Liam muttered something and went about his routine. But when he opened the delivery log, his name appeared next to an order he hadn't taken. Large Hawaiian. 121, Kailua Drive. The same vanished address. The same handwriting. Shaky, smudged, but undeniable. He looked up sharply, but Manny was gone. The shop seemed quieter than usual, as if the sound itself had thinned out, like air before a storm. He ripped the slip from the pad and shoved it into his pocket, his pulse drumming. That evening, his car smelled of pineapple again, though he hadn't eaten or delivered any. The passenger seat bore a faint impression, like someone had sat there recently. He caught himself glancing sideways, half expecting to see a figure. Instead, a faint whisper brushed his ear. "You still owe her." He slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, scanning the empty road. But there was no one. Only the smell, thick and syrupy, swirling around him like unseen smoke. That he pulled over, trembling, and stepped out. The night sky was heavy, clouds smothering the moonlight. From the woods nearby came a flicker, a lantern glow. Then he heard it again, the melody, clearer now, calling him. He followed, branches snapping underfoot, until he reached a clearing. In the center sat a small wooden altar, overgrown but still standing. On it rested a pineapple, fresh and glistening, steam rising from its surface as though it breathed. Around it lay old pizza boxes, some rotted through. Every box had the same marking, Tony's Slice House. Something moved behind the altar. A silhouette, tall, slender, hair spilling like dark seaweed, watching him. "Why are you still delivering?" the voice asked, quiet but sharp as glass. Liam's throat tightened. "Who are you?" he managed. She smiled, though her eyes didn't move. "You brought the offering. Now you'll bring the rest." The next morning, the Ocean Majesty felt quieter. Conversations in the dining room were hushed, eyes darting toward the windows that overlooked the water. The official announcement about the missing passenger was clinical and rehearsed. Despite an extensive search, Ms. Laura Bennett has not been located. Our thoughts are with her loved ones during this difficult time. No mention of how she'd gone overboard. No details, no explanations. Megan's tablemates exchanged uneasy glances before changing the subject entirely, as though speaking of it too long might invite the same fate. Megan decided she couldn't let it go. She went down to guest services again, demanding to speak to the ship's security officer. The receptionist, the same young man as before, tried to placate her with polite deflections, but this time she refused to leave. After several tense minutes, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp white uniform appeared. His name tag read Chief Security Officer Markham. He led her into a small, windowless office and shut the door. "You should drop this," he said immediately. His tone wasn't threatening. It was weary, almost resigned. When Megan asked why, he sighed and leaned in. "You've seen him, haven't you?" The man in the suit. Markham's expression didn't change when she nodded. "He's been on this ship longer than anyone can prove. We've checked manifests going back 15 years. Every time a passenger in a certain section of Deck 7 vanishes, there are reports of him. Always the same description. Always near the victim's cabin. And it's never random." Megan felt her mouth go dry. "Then why not lock that section? Warn people." Markham looked away. "Orders from above. And sometimes the disappearances stop for months. We don't want panic." His voice dropped even lower. But the moment he starts watching someone, it's already too late. Before she could press him for more, a sharp knock rattled the office door. Another officer stepped in, whispering something into Markham's ear. His face drained of color. "Stay in your cabin tonight," he told Megan urgently. "Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone." He hesitated, then added, "If you hear the knock, it means he's already chosen you." Back in her cabin, Megan locked the door, shoved a chair under the handle, and sat on the bed with every light on. Hours passed. The ship groaned and shifted under the weight of the sea. Just as she started to think she might make it through the night, she heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Exactly like before. But this time, the voice that followed wasn't the man's deep monotone. It was her own voice, perfect in tone and pitch, calling softly. "Megan, let me in." He didn't go to work the next day. His phone rang nonstop. Manny, co-workers, unknown numbers, but he let them all go to voicemail. He packed a bag, thinking he'd leave town. But when he started his car, the GPS lit up on its own, already set to a destination, 121 Kailua Drive. He stared at it, shaking, then slammed the screen off. The same instant, his radio flickered on. "Don't fight it," the woman's voice whispered. "You opened the path." The windshield fogged up again, and through the mist he thought he saw her reflection beside him, lips almost touching his ear. Liam drove aimlessly for hours, trying to lose whatever held him. But every road, every turn, somehow looped him back toward the outskirts. As night fell, exhaustion took over. He pulled into a gas station, head pounding. The cashier eyed him warily. "You delivering tonight?" he asked casually. Liam froze. "What did you say?" The man shrugged. "You got the car, the jacket, the smell. Folks around here say there's a guy delivers pizza to the dead." Liam stared, horrified. "That's not funny." "Didn't say it was," the man muttered, glancing at the clock. "Midnight's close. You'd better hurry." By the time Liam reached the old industrial road again, he'd stopped trying to rationalize. The forest seemed alive, branches bending slightly toward him as he passed. When the clearing appeared, the altar had changed, larger now, surrounded by candles burning with blue flame. The carved box from the laundromat sat open at the center, humming faintly. "You brought the first and second," the voice said from the shadows. "Now bring yourself." He stepped forward, trembling. "Why me?" The answer came like wine through leaves. "Because you accepted the call." She stepped into the light, the woman from the house, her form clearer now, her skin the color of coral, her eyes dark as volcanic stone. "Every offering must end with a messenger," she said. "Yours is the final delivery." He stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, I didn't agree to this." Her smile was almost kind. "You did. When you said, Hawaiian, extra pineapple. You sealed it." She reached out, and the air shimmered like heat. The altar pulsed once, twice, and everything went dark. When Liam woke, he was standing behind the counter of Tony's slice house. But it wasn't morning. The lights flickered. The walls looked older. And from the kitchen came the smell, sweet, ripe, unbearable. The phone rang again. Liam stared at it, afraid to move. It rang once, twice, a third time. Finally, he lifted the receiver. One large Hawaiian. A man's voice said, calm, polite, human. "Extra pineapple." Liam's throat went dry. Who is this? But the line clicked dead. He looked down. A ticket had printed automatically from the machine. The address was new. Tony's Slice House, counter pickup. The order was for himself. His hands shook as he boxed the pizza. When he lifted the lid, the toppings shifted into the same spiral as before, faintly glowing beneath the cheese. He felt something in his chest twist. Not pain, but a pull. The kitchen lights dimmed, and shadows lengthened toward him. He turned, and Manny stood there, silent, expression unreadable. "Kid," he said quietly, "you shouldn't have answered that first call." Liam stared. "You knew?" Manny nodded. "It finds a new driver every few years. Always the same way. Always the Hawaiian." His voice cracked slightly. "I thought maybe it skipped us this time." Liam's stomach turned. "What happens now?" Manny looked at him with tired eyes. "Now, you finish the route." Outside, the rain began again. He carried the box to his car, numb. The GPS flickered back on, displaying no address, only a single word, return. The drive blurred, roads twisting in unfamiliar patterns, until he saw a faint glow in the distance. It wasn't the house or the laundromat, it was the ocean. The shoreline spread before him, waves black and glistening under a shrouded moon. He followed the glow to a cluster of rocks where the tide crashed hardest. There, half buried in sand, was another pizza box, old, waterlogged, marked with his own handwriting that he dropped to his knees, opening it. Inside lay a photo, his car, parked outside Tony's. Behind it, the faint reflection of the coral-skinned woman in the glass. "You've delivered well," her voice whispered around him, though there was no wind. "Now deliver yourself." The tide surged, foamy water crawling up the sand to his boots. The smell of pineapple grew stronger, suffocating. The world tilted, and he fell forward, the ocean swallowing him whole. When the waves receded, only the pizza box remained. Weeks passed. Tony's Slice House reopened under new management. The sign had been repaired, brighter now, but the air still carried that faint sweetness, lingering like perfume. A new driver started, a quiet kid named Jake. On his first night, just before closing, the phone rang. One large Hawaiian. Came the soft female voice. Extra pineapple. Jake wrote it down, smiling, unaware. The address, 121 Kailua Drive. Manny's replacement nodded. Take it. Easy run. Jake left, cheerful, whistling as he drove. The same mist rolled across the road. The same broken streetlights flickered overhead. At the end of the street, the same mailbox leaned crooked, the same number faintly visible, 121. He parked, grabbed the box, and climbed the porch steps. Hello, he called. No answer. The door creaked open. Warm air, thick with fruit and brine, spilled out. Pizza delivery, he said, setting the box down. A soft hand reached from the dark and pulled it inside. Mahalo, whispered the unseen voice. Jake laughed nervously and turned to leave. But before he reached his car, something fluttered against his windshield. A napkin, damp with rain. Written on it in delicate cursive, "Thank you, Liam." He frowned, glancing back. The porch was empty. The house was silent. Somewhere far away, the ocean roared. That night, Manny's replacement checked the receipts. Jake's last delivery slip was blank. The phone lines were dead. And the next morning, Jake's car was found abandoned on the industrial road, doors open, the smell of pineapple heavy in the air. Inside, on the passenger seat, sat a single, untouched slice of pizza, still warm. Years passed. The legend of the Hawaiian Order became local folklore, a ghost story whispered among new employees, a joke to scare trainees. Don't take late-night calls, they'd say. Not if it's pineapple. The shop changed hands again and again, but the pattern remained. Every few years, a driver vanished. Always after delivering the same order. Always to the same non-existent address. Then, one stormy evening, a woman arrived at the shop. She was tall, dressed in black, her skin faintly coral under the fluorescent lights. "Is this Tony's Slice House?" she asked softly. The clerk nodded. She smiled, faint, knowing. "I'd like to place an order." Her voice carried a melodic lilt, soft but commanding. One large Hawaiian. Extra pineapple. The clerk hesitated. "For delivery?" She shook her head. "No. For here." She sat by the window as rain streaked the glass, humming that same island tune. When the pizza arrived, steam rose from the box. She didn't eat. She only looked out at the rain, eyes distant, humming softly. He finished his route. She murmured to no one. Now he rests. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. She rose, left a bill on the counter, and walked out into the storm. The clerk picked up the money. It was old, weathered, the ink faded. Where her hand had touched the counter, a faint scent of pineapple lingered. Outside, the rain had stopped. The woman was gone. Only her footprints remained, leading down the street, vanishing into the dark. The shop closed for good a year later. The building sat empty, lights out, sign rusting. But on quiet nights, locals swore they could still see the faint glow of the neon letters flickering through the fog. And if you stood close enough, you could smell pineapple. Teenagers dared each other to break in, but none stayed long. They said the ovens still burned, faintly, as if waiting. Inside, the kitchen was dust-covered, forgotten. Only one object stood out, a fresh pizza box sitting on the counter, unspoiled, as though delivered moments ago. On the lid, written in red marker, the Hawaiian Order. Anyone brave enough to lift it claimed to see not toppings, but a reflection, their own face staring back, eyes hollow, mouth full of static. They said if you listened closely, you could hear a voice whisper, "Your turn." And somewhere, miles away, a phone would ring in the dead of night. Tony's Slice House. A new voice would answer, unaware of the curse they'd inherited on the other end. A woman's soft whisper. "One large Hawaiian," she'd say. "Extra pineapple." The cycle, eternal, would begin again. End of the Hawaiian Order.